Hi, good to see you. The life of the star Jiménez has always provoked envy among friends and colleagues. Getting married at the age of years and so successfully raising a beautiful daughter working in the job of her dreams, having everything a woman can dream of is not happiness. However, the star had a vague notion. She had already gone through a midlife crisis and resigned herself to the fact that her husband did not love her at all from the outside. Her marriage to Damaso seemed impeccable. An elegant apartment, regular vacations and luxury resorts, weekly dinners and expensive restaurants. And if he gave her something, it was only with a non-star diamond. And Damaso, they did not argue. They simply had not spoken to each other for 2 years at all. Not even a simple good morning was heard frequently in her home. Only if her husband was in a good mood. Their life together became a silent ritual. The spouses ate breakfast in silence, after which each one went their way. At lunchtime, Estrella sent him to her husband text messages: "How I'm late, heat up dinner," or "Today we'll go to the Lara family." The Lara family were her best friends. Naim had been friends with Estrella since college, and her husband Lucy became friends with Damaso. Apparently men didn't have nothing in common. Damaso, the elegant director of a well-known architecture studio in the city, was always impeccably dressed, suit, tie, shoes polished to a shine, strict haircut, looked unkempt. He spent more than half of his life in the mountains, it seemed. A cartoon character with his baggy sweater and eternal beard. However, in their first meeting, the men immediately hit it off. The shared passion united them. They were both obsessed with hunting. On more than one occasion, they ventured together to the north where they hunted wild boars, elks, and even bears. After returning with trophies, would immediately start planning a new joint trip or harass their wives with stories of the previous star, and Naim found this amusing. So do not interfere, or they prevented their husbands from developing their common interest. The Jiménez family went to visit the Laris or vice versa several times a week. It would be easier to just live together, the star joked, given that they lived in different parts of the city. The proposal didn't sound too comical despite the silent conflict between Estrella and Damaso. This did not affect their relationships with friends. They continued meeting and having good times. Perhaps that is why Estrella did not pay attention to the problem, thinking that everything was going on. But this morning, everything took an unexpected turn. When she woke up, she found a tray next to her with a bouquet of fresh flowers, a couple of croissants, and a cup of aromatic coffee. "What is this surprise?" Star exclaimed out loud, and suddenly she had the unexpected idea that Damaso had gone crazy. "Oh, you've woken up," her husband said softly, entering the room. "Happy anniversary, my joy. And this is for you." Damaso extended a small flat velvet box towards Star. She opened it and exclaimed. Inside she found a beautiful necklace. "Incredible, encrusted with blue stones." "Damaso," she said with round eyes, "you have gone crazy. They are star sapphires. Why do you react like a little girl? Today is our anniversary, by the way. Years. Maybe I can't give jewelry to my beautiful wife. Isn't that it seemed so good to me? You yourself, you've probably noticed lately we don't get along very well. In fact, I didn't even remember that today was the date. I feel terribly embarrassed." "But," Star, her husband hugged her, "there's nothing wrong with that. I have noticed, so I decided to make amends. It all started when Borja left. Borja is his daughter. Estrella got pregnant before the wedding. At that time, she and Damaso were just starting to date. When he knew he was going to be a father, without hesitation, he married Estrella. Raised in a traditional family, never considered leaving the girl with a child. Although he knew that he did not feel a special love for Estrella, however, things fell into place for them. Borja strengthened their union. Many families face serious trials with routine and children in the family. Jiménez, everything turned out the other way around. The longer they were together, the stronger their family became. Both parents adored their daughter. Borja grew up as a happy girl, and both the star and Damaso took care of her. A kind of competition developed between them to show who could express more love. Star worked as a child psychologist. She had clear opinions and professionals about parenting. She maintained a constant dialogue with the girl. She took her to various activities, but only those that Borja chose for herself. Damaso spoiled his daughter. He thought his wife was too strict with the girl. They often sneaked away to enjoy ice cream. They bought half of the children's stores and accumulated mountains of dresses. The mother couldn't do anything about it, no matter how much tried to educate Borja according to the rules. Her husband would ruin everything if the daughter began to fall behind in the star school. He made an effort to help her, but Damaso insisted on not intervening and not depriving the girl of her childhood. In the end, Borja She grew up spoiled and capricious. She was amused by the competition between her parents. She knew that in any situation her father would be on her side, and all of her mother's attempts to do things her way crashed against the wall of paternal love. Borja loved them, but her character she left a lot to be desired by the time of her graduation. The girl had become a real spoiled child. She now used her father to get what she wanted. Star wondered how she could grow up like that. Being a professional child psychologist helped many parents deal with their children, but unfortunately, she herself had only made things worse, and all thanks to her husband's inflexible principles. Even at that time, the star was already subconsciously beginning to blame him for all the family problems when Borja entered the family. University, it seemed that everything was stabilizing. The girl showed interest in her studies, although school classes used to bore her deeply, but she liked the chosen specialty. Borja began to study medicine. None of the parents. She didn't even imagine that her daughter had a real talent. Biology and Latin, which caused other students to be nervous, seemed easier to Borja than the multiplication table. She became one of the most outstanding students. The star began to feel real pride in her, attributing part of due to the merit of her upbringing. Damaso, for her part, constantly boasted about her daughter's achievements to numerous acquaintances. The daughter completely immersed herself in her studies, became serious, and a sense of responsibility that was previously unknown to her. They say that people do not change. Apparently, the youthful maximalism gave way when the girl had a clear goal in mind. Even the atmosphere in the family changed. Everything became much calmer, and no one argued over a doll or a telephone. As Borja approached the end of the academy, she shocked her parents with news. The young woman planned to go to work after graduating in a clinic in another city, and the prospect of separating from her daughter was already waiting for her there. For more than years, it was an integral part of them. It did not make the parents happy. Borja kept his word. As soon as he received his diploma, he left. From that moment, in the house of Los Jiménez reigned silence. At first, the spouses tried to maintain the illusion of a family happy, but it didn't go well. Both of them understood that something was missing, and it wasn't just Borja, but that love that never existed but whose absence they skillfully camouflaged. He said, "And if we have another child?" Damaso even choked. "Dear, what are you talking about? Maybe it's something extraordinary. We are still quite young. You know what age they are having children now, and something is the ideal age for motherhood. I understand that, but why do we need it? And first of all, for you, you have already fulfilled yourself as a mother. Look at the daughter you raised will soon bring us grandchildren. It will entertain you with that." He didn't say, "Star, the grandchildren are something completely different, and I still want to have another child. Now I have much more experience than before. I will be able to raise him perfectly." "Star, there is no perfection. You don't know. It's also you're going to walk around with a big belly." "The end peak, please. You are so old-fashioned." Damaso sighed. Estrella. She had brought up this topic several times, but her husband remained inflexible, and the less chance Estrella had of persuading him, the less they talked. It seemed that Damaso was afraid to start any conversation, fearing that Estrella would bring up a painful topic again. As the years went by, this state became habitual for both of them. When Damaso congratulated his wife on her anniversary, she convinced herself that the conflict of many years had come to an end. Her husband invited her to dinner that night at a restaurant at work. Star was flying as if on wings. She had already been with her private practice for a long time, where she cared for young patients and their worried parents. The joy that settled in her soul since the morning was reflected in her appearance. The secretary Thelma looked at her for a while with suspicion, while the boss smiled mysteriously. Star asked, "Why are you so happy today?" "Today is our anniversary with my husband." "Thelma, can you imagine years together?" "Don't tell me." Thelma was surprised. "I didn't even think they had been together for so long. People are lucky, and I don't really do well with boys. My longest relationships have lasted a year, and still, I just didn't dare to leave." "You are still very young. Don't worry. Now you are simply gaining experience. It is completely natural. I got married when I was years old. I wouldn't say that there are so many positive aspects. As Thelma said, no fights or arguments. He doesn't cheat on you. He promotes your development in every way. He is not a husband. He is gold." Star sighed deeply. Thelma was right, but throughout all these years, Star never experienced true love. But how do you explain that? For many, material success was in the foreground, living comfortably without depriving themselves of anything. Feelings could be relegated. However, as a teenager, she wanted live emotions. Not this sterile life according to the model, but a real one with scandals, passionate reconciliations, and sincere feelings, wishing for something like that after years. It was nonsense. The star didn't want to accept it. This is how old age creeps up, and it turns out that the true emotions were never there. Or rather, they were when Borja grew up. Her mother's unconditional love encompassed everything. Maybe that's why she desperately tried to get her mother's consent. Husband to have another child wanted to repeat what he had already said. Of course, if she miraculously became pregnant, Damaso would agree to keep the child, but the problem lies precisely in the fact that the closeness between the spouses faded even before the communication between them. Star simply accepted that fact. She did not suffer much from it, but sometimes she felt a certain desire towards her husband Damaso. Unfortunately, he remained indifferent. At lunchtime, they took a girl named Mara, was years old and very thin and nervous. Her mother, a woman of a few years old, was not much different from her daughter. Look, she said irritably to the psychologist. I don't know what to do with her. She doesn't eat anything. She cries. He throws tantrums all the time. He refuses to go to kindergarten. And what should I do? I work. I don't have time to listen to his whims. I understand, answered tired Star. Star saw dozens of mothers overwhelmed by everyday life. Every day, they all had similar problems, disobedient children who interfered with their personal lives. Most often these were young single mothers. Sometimes Star wondered why these women decided to have children in the first place. Many of them were selfish, childish, and frankly naive. They did not understand that children needed attention, not just another toy. Leave us alone for a few minutes, please. I will call you later, said Star. I cannot be present, aggressively asked the mother. I also want to participate. Wants to participate. It would be better if I showed that participation in life from her daughter. Star thought to herself, I'll call you. But first I need to meet the girl. Okay, the woman agreed, although her consent seemed more motivated by the phone call she already received. Who quickly left the office. Hello, Mara. Star greeted the girl. My name is Star. Why don't we play a little? You and I are going. The girl was interested. What are we playing? What do you like to play? I don't know. Mara responded hesitantly. Well, maybe you'll play something with yourself. Mom has a favorite game we don't play with. Mom, the girl was sad. She gives me the tablet and leaves, and they go for a walk. No, sometimes we walk to the store, but Mom is always sad. It's boring with her. I understand, Star reflected. So let's play this game. I'll show you images and you will describe what you see. Come on. The Star girl was encouraged again. She took out a box full of bright cards and began to show them to Mara one by one. Mara excitedly began to describe what she saw, but as the Star suspected, the images did not evoke good associations in the girl. She felt very alone. It was evident that her mother did not pay her the attention she needed. The girl suffered a lot because she had nowhere to channel all the love and the energy accumulated inside her. Star could not take care of re-educating her. The mother had long realized that those always busy parents nodded in agreement, and then the situation only got worse. It was much easier for them to get a prescription from the therapist for the child, just to disguise the symptoms of their own incompetence. Star, I didn't practice that approach with each child brought to her. She committed herself, completely hoping to restore those tender and wounded souls. The half-hour game talk with Mara provided a complete picture. The girl was happy. She even blushed a little. What do you think? Asked Star when the cards were finished. Great, the girl smiled. I wish it was always like that. You can play alone. Tell me, do you like to draw? Maybe, Mara responded hesitantly. Just don't tell me you've never drawn. I like to model with plasticine, said the girl. Oh, I understand. Well, that too. It's okay. And if I give you tasks to do with plasticine, seriously, Mara's eyes got bigger. Of course, if it makes you happy, there is no need to limit yourself. I also like to draw, but I don't have paints. There are in the garden. Infants, but I don't like being there. The teacher is bad. She always shouts. You behave badly. I don't behave well. I just eat little. I don't feel like it. And she scolds me. And then Mom scolds me too. Why do you eat little? You don't like it. I think you have a favorite dish which you would not refuse no matter what happens. If the girl looked away, small square carrots. Star understood that the girl was referring to the carrot slices similar to those served on the children's menu. It was not the most complete option for a child, but still so it is possible that her mother did not take her anywhere. Estrella was burning with indignation for this little girl whose life was spent in worries and sadness when she realized that she was not necessary for the most loved person in the world. The psychologist called the mother to her office. It was becoming increasingly difficult for Estrella to contain her emotions. She longed to reprimand this irresponsible woman in public, but that would not be professional. "Well, you've convinced yourself," the mother began, a completely uncontrollable child. At that moment, she noticed that Mara was smiling. For a moment, the mother's face was disconcerted. First, concern was reflected, and then, imitating the girl's behavior, she also smiled. "She doesn't need any pills," she started. "Spoke on the phone, it's just lack of attention, I buy him everything he asks for. I often see parents trying to make it up to their children, understand. All they need is their love, not dolls or candy. When was the last time you did something together? You went for a walk in the park, to the zoo, or to the puppet theater? Understand that a simple walk will restore your appetite and improve your mood. I know you work all the time, but once a week you can afford this too. You will benefit from the environment at home that is always reflected in the children. You really know that." "She likes dolls." The woman reflected. "I definitely like them at her age." "Right, but she is not you, even though she looks a lot like you. She loves them. Mold with plasticine and paint right now. Go to the children's store and buy her paints. Just let her choose for herself. Don't forget the brushes. You will see how in a few days the child will change before your eyes. And if I were you, I would talk seriously with the kindergarten teacher. Infants, and what happens there?" The woman was surprised. "Think about it for yourself. Would you eat when they yell at you and scold you in front of everyone? I doubt it. So why should Mara put up with that treatment? It is natural for a child to withdraw and refuse to eat. Don't think that it is small and doesn't understand anything. Right now you are absorbing everything. You will not notice how the girl will grow up and all the accumulated offenses will manifest themselves, and that she will stop taking you seriously. She will leave home at the first opportunity and forget like a nightmare. Now, everything can be easily fixed. I will wait for you in 1 week. Here is your homework. Do it together." "Thank you," Mara's mother timidly thanked, and yes, she called Star when they were leaving the office. "Right now, go with your daughter to a cafeteria where they sell carrot sticks." Mara was the last patient scheduled for today. After her departure, Star thought about the girl again. Suddenly a melancholy so overwhelming enveloped her that her head even began to hurt. She asked Telma for a cup of strong herbal tea. The ideas did not flow in her mind. She suddenly remembered that she had planned a dinner at a restaurant for the night. "I haven't even bought the dress. I need to find the gift for Damaso, and the appointment at the salon is close. I better go, or she will be disappointed if I'm late." Star bought a beautiful dress. Night she did her hair and flashy makeup. Looking in the mirror, she noticed that she was still young enough, and she doubted that others would look at her much if they saw a prominent belly. The night with her husband went wonderfully. Estrella gave her a beautiful engraved house knife. Star shook his head. "Damaso, the gift is first class, of course, but don't you think that giving knives is bad luck?" "Nonsense," dismissed Star with a wave of the hand. "It's useful. Something you need certainly doesn't compare to your gift, and superstition is a sign of mental weakness." So that's what Damaso laughed. "Well, you know, the spouses drank red wine and laughed, remembering the past without realizing it." Star got drunk. Damaso also began to have difficulty articulating the words like this. They soon went home. As they entered the apartment, the Star, staggering heavily on her high heels, would have fallen if her husband had not held her tight to him. The woman felt the familiar scent of the perfume he was wearing. It had driven her crazy in the old days. Whether it was a nostalgic attack, the wine, or both was the reason for the sudden wave of tenderness that enveloped her. She kissed her husband. He responded. More than a month had passed since the anniversary, contrary to the Star's expectations. After that night, or more precisely that morning, her husband became even colder towards her. She did not understand the reason for such a change, since outwardly, it seemed that everything was fine. They celebrated man's anniversary. It was magical, but for some reason Damaso woke up that tomorrow, visibly affected. That feeling of guilt was also transmitted to Estrella. They did not exchange a word. Even worse, since that day, Damaso almost stopped showing up at home. Estrella did not lack the courage to ask her husband where he was. In some way, she convinced herself. When Damaso moved to the office, she was tired of racking her brains, and after work she went there. Damaso's office was located in an old restored mansion in the center of the city. Her architecture studio was considered one of the best on the team. Several high-level architects and designers worked at one time. Damaso himself was developing projects, but the company grew, the clients increased, and he made the decision to expand the staff. Over the years, his small company became an ADA firm that he dealt with projects of different scales. The office was large and cozy, and on the second floor there was a large living room where Damaso often stayed when matters dragged on, which is why Star thought that Damaso had passed. The last few days there, the working day in the office was already coming to an end. At the reception there was a bored security guard. When he saw her, the man got up. Good night. Star said, hello, bad Damaso is here. Yes, he hasn't come down yet. Although everyone has left, I can go up, of course. I'll let you know. We haven't already agreed. Star went up the wide staircase to the second floor and knocked on the door of her husband's office. Pass. It was heard from inside. Damaso was sitting on the couch next to him on the table. A bottle of whiskey half empty. Star, he was surprised. And you, why are you here? Hello, Damaso, she answered with insecurity. I always knew I would find you here. Why don't you show up at home? There is a lot of work. He was so disconcerted that you even have to spend the night in the office you are wearing missing for almost a month. I'm worried. Stop worrying. Damaso ignored him and drank the glass in one gulp. I see that you're so busy. Are you, Damaso? What are you thinking about? You don't want to talk and you drink so often. I want to and I drink. I'm an adult, he said. The offended one, of course, but you have responsibilities of family after all. Family, suddenly laughed Damaso. Do you really think this is called family? Since Borja left, all our problems came to light. And you know what the main problem is? No, I don't know. Within Star, everything went cold. The problem is that we never loved each other. We got married for the child. We lived together for the child. Even now, seeing that everything is falling apart, you keep trying to glue the pieces together with another child. We are going to separate. Star, I can't take it anymore. I'm tired of this whole situation, about you. Even about myself. What are you talking about? Star looked at her husband without understanding. His words cut her self-esteem like a knife. But she knew very well that all that was true. Listen, Damaso said while taking a drink. But he spoke coherently. No, I love you. I have never loved you. Yes, we have gotten used to each other. I respect you. I appreciate you. But I need something more, something else. Star was surprised. Yes, something more. I want freedom to do what I want, however I want, and with whoever you want. You are limiting me with your rules. You think I don't see how you apply your psychological tricks on me, Damaso. You are wrong. Even now you are a boring old woman. A woman dissatisfied with life. I have no intention of dragging you along for the rest of my days by limiting it. Damaso, I will leave now. We will talk tomorrow, Star. I could barely hold back the tears. I didn't expect to hear something like that from your husband, and sober. I'll tell you the same thing. You don't realize how ridiculous it is that we are silent all the time. What is this, some kind of exercise to strengthen the family? But on our anniversary, I thought we had solved the problem. We solved it, Damaso laughed. Is that your idea of a solution? It was a mistake. Not even it was not a mistake. I needed to do it to convince myself once. And for all that I don't feel anything for you, and in general, Estrella, I should have said it a long time ago, but I didn't dare. Idiot, I have another wife. Estrella's legs gave out and she collapsed heavily on the couch. For a minute, she reflected on her husband's words. True, or is he telling me this to hurt me? The woman asked herself. If it's true, this explains a lot. Yes, Star, it's true. As if I were reading her thoughts, the husband said, I love this woman, and I don't want to continue deceiving anyone. That's why I'm asking for a divorce. She's young, just asked Star. Well, younger than you, joked Damaso. And how long have you been together? 1.5 years is not a little, Star murmured. To be honest, I thought you had someone, too. But what kind of woman are you? You didn't even bother when you saw like ours relationships were falling apart. I thought you didn't care. And we met Amaya by chance. She commissioned us to do a project for her apartment. We didn't have designers available. I decided to take care of it myself. And that's how it all happened. Star got up. He stayed for a while next to his wife, looking at him, while he poured another drink and left in silence. When he went out into the street, he understood that something terrible had just happened. However, the magnitude of this catastrophe, it only gradually came to her, means that he abandoned me. And now what am I destined for? To be left alone. This is a misunderstanding. No, I don't think so. He simply got drunk. No, in the depths of his heart, Star understood that this was not simply a misunderstanding. Their marriage of many years ended in the same way in which it began, suddenly, and with no feelings. Star didn't even blame her husband for the betrayal. It could be called betrayal. After all, he had simply lived with her in silence for the past few years, like a specter that wanders without saying a word through the at home. Anyone would have started looking for love elsewhere, and Damaso was right. There was never love in her Star relationship. She couldn't even get truly angry with him. The only thing that really hurt her were his comments about her age. How am I old? I'm only old himself. No. Is he a child, or is he comparing me to his new passion? I'm sure he got some old brat, and what does that mean? taking me for a walk. I never reproached him for anything in my entire life. I put up with Borja's antics. Although I saw that he spoiled the child and questioned my entire upbringing. I can support myself. All those expensive gifts were exclusively his initiative. He has no intention of taking me anywhere. I am limiting his freedom. Let him leave with his new Paris. Amaya doesn't matter. Star walked while reflecting. About what was happening, she was so absorbed in her thoughts that she didn't even realize that she didn't get in the car and decided to go home on foot a few weeks later. Damaso arrived at work and handed her the paperwork. Divorce Star didn't even ask anything. He just asked when the trial would be. The usual 2 months after filing the documents. Our daughter is of age, so there will be no problems. Only questions can arise about the division of assets. You understand? We will have to divide everything in half. That's all I want, nothing more than the apartment and my car. You can keep everything else. No, it's not going to be like that. Her husband suddenly protested. We will also divide the Star apartment. She wondered if Damaso was so stingy and principal. Apart from this apartment, among their shared properties, there were 2 cars, an unfinished house in the suburbs, and a small joint account. Furthermore, he earned very well. Unlike her, yes, of course, the income from his consultations was more than enough for a single person, but they did not compare to the level of Damaso. He really wanted to sue her. It gave the impression that her husband was not acting on his own, but under the influence of his new passion, the Damaso who stars. He knew he would never have acted like this. What this apartment meant to him. They bought it when Borja had his birthday. At that time, it was the most prestigious house in the city. Star. He had to sell the apartment that his parents left him their savings, while Damaso at that time was actively expanding their business. They both contributed enough. There were many memories associated with this apartment. So Star didn't want to move out, of course. Star could just buy her share, but she didn't have that money. Damaso can't do it like that. She told her husband how it can't be done by law. He was surprised. He understands. This apartment is not just a box where you can live. These are moments dear to my heart. Every fold in the curtains here is precious to me. Let me give up everything that belongs to me, but let's agree that the apartment will be mine. Star replied. Damaso tired. That's not how it's done. That's not how it's not done, you say, and leaving your wife after years of living together is normal for you. Star was literally done. Pieces out of indignation. What does your parent advise you, Amaya? Her husband corrected. I don't care what she advises you, Damaso. It seems that you are becoming submissive. I didn't think you would be like that, but you know what? If you don't want to be understanding, then I too will refuse. I won't give you the divorce in court. We will see who has the right to what. Just keep in mind that I will spare no effort to deprive you of your usual comfort. Already for the second day, Star was feeling terrible. A strong nausea prevented her from working, and she was experiencing a general feeling of malaise. She asked. Telma canceled all the appointments and headed home in the last few days. Star was very nervous. The impending divorce had gotten on her nerves. Although she did not feel like an offended and humiliated woman, there was still an unpleasant aftertaste in her soul. Her husband seemed like a traitor. Being a psychologist, she understood how exaggerated her emotions were. But since as a woman she couldn't do anything about it, she wrapped herself at home with a blanket, took a sleeping pill and tried to sleep. Dreamed of nonsense, a tall, red-haired woman, the Messiah in a crib telling her how good she was, and then Damaso appeared dressed in a bear's skin, and she had to run through swamps. She began to sink, but an unknown man with a serious and tanned face pulled her out and told her not to do it anymore. To the girls, little ones are not allowed to walk alone through the swamps. Star woke up drenched in sweat. She felt nausea rising in her throat, and she barely made it to the bathroom. My God, she said out loud, why did I go to eat those sushis with Naim? I have never been a fan of Japanese cuisine. When Naim found out that her best friend was getting divorced, she thought it was some kind of joke. But when she saw the Star's serious expression, she immediately understood that she was serious. How could that be possible? Naim asked. They aren't children. They have lived together for so many years, and now they are together. They are divorcing. He has a Naim lover. That's not what it's about. Understand, we have never loved each other. How is that? They always seemed like an exemplary couple to me. All that is just a facade. The last 2 years we didn't even talk. We both made an effort to pretend that that's how it should be, or rather I pretended. It turns out that Damaso has a lover. He confessed everything to me, but you know, I don't even blame him. I probably would have done the same in his place. And you have someone else. You're kidding. Where I live for my job and my family, or rather lived now, I can't even imagine what will happen. Star said. Naim, seriously, in your place I would look for a decent man. Look how beautiful you are, self-sufficient. With experience in general people like you should. Get married without hesitation at Damaso is a. Stupid, but without love you can't. That's true. I'm very lucky with my geologist. He may not be handsome at first glance, and he always goes on his expeditions, but you know how my heart beats when he appears at the door all disheveled and satisfied. You're lucky, Naeem side star, and you will do well. Consider Damaso as a necessary intermediate stage. Well, it's over, but you're still here. Appreciate it. Be happy for today. There's no need to regret the past. It's over. Forget it, and the future hasn't even arrived. You have the power to create it for yourself. From where to get strength for all this now? I feel like a vase from which the flowers have been thrown away, leaving stagnant water inside. What comparison is that you need? Urgently raise your self-esteem. Tomorrow we will go shopping at a spa, and also to the zoo. To the zoo, you are completely crazy. There you will see how the beautiful and proud animals are forced to be in cages, locked up by circumstances, and deprived of freedom. You are comparing me to them now. You are insightful. Naeem laughed. Star, I love you very much, and I don't want to see this proud and beautiful woman whom I have admired all my life lock herself in a cage of circumstances and slowly fade away. Life has presented you with a gift now, unlimited freedom. Your daughter is an adult. Your husband leave do everything you dreamed of, but you couldn't afford, and it's true. Star reflected. Well, let's go to the zoo. You've convinced me. The nausea didn't stop. Star was cursing herself again for yesterday's sushis. Maybe I'll have to cancel The woman thought what is usually taken in cases of poisoning. Estrella searched and took the selected medications. The powder took effect quickly. The discomfort in her stomach disappeared. Even so, the rest of the day Estrella spent relaxing at the spa with her friend. The next day, she returned to experience an attack of nausea. What is this? Star complained. It can't be. And if it's the woman's suspicion, it perplexed her. She immediately ran to the pharmacy where she bought a pregnancy test. In minutes, Star already knew that inside her there was developing a new life. This can't be, I thought. Star, these things are often wrong, but the nausea, and I haven't had a period in a long time. Although that is not a proof. My cycle has always been irregular. I need to go to the hospital immediately. But in the consultation, the gynecologist only confirmed her suspicions. Well, Star, congratulations. You will be a mother. You have been a mother for weeks. It is not your first pregnancy. It is not your second. Star was taken aback. My daughter is already years old. It is commendable that you have decided to have another one. It is not too late for me. Don't say nonsense, the doctor reassured her. Giving birth to children is quite normal nowadays. If it were your first pregnancy, of course, there would be certain risks, but then everything will be fine. Your husband, I guess he has no idea, right? Of course he has no idea, answered Star in a distant manner. Suddenly it began. Let's think about how I tell this news to Damaso, or should I even say it? The woman reflected. He didn't want a child. Now this means another divorce. Maybe he'll change his mind. But I don't feel like forgiving him after this betrayal. I don't want to live with him. No. I want it to be the end of a stage, and there is no need to try to rebuild what is broken. I will not say anything, at least for now. Well, and I have to tell Borja, and if he tells his father, or should he keep it a secret for now? When Star came to at home, she still couldn't assimilate the news. Of course, she wanted a child, but the idea of raising one alone made her uneasy. Why didn't she say out loud, I'm an independent woman. What does it matter if my husband left? Also, this will be my son. I can raise him however I want without outside intervention. To Borja. I won't say anything either. As if they sensed. Hello, Mom said happily through the receiver. Hello, dear, answered Star. How unexpected that you call. What do you mean by unexpected? Aren't you happy to hear me? Don't talk nonsense, the mother laughed. Mom, everything is fine. Why are you asking? Star worried. It seemed to him that Borja already knew about his future brother or sister. It's just that your dad called today. I still can't accept the fact that they are getting divorced. Borja sighed. The woman, it's easy to judge from the outside. You left, you didn't see what it was happening at home when Damaso talked about the divorce. I didn't even oppose it. We were both tired of each other. Plus, he has a new wife. Which woman? Asked in surprise. The daughter didn't know. Seriously, your dad didn't tell you? No, of course he told me that you were the one who initiated the divorce. That rascal got angry. Star. No, daughter, your dad has been dating another woman for 1.5 years. I don't know if he's going with her or not, but he told me himself. Well, Dad, now I'll tell him everything. Daughter, it's not necessary. It's your life. That. Do whatever you want. I thought maybe you were also seeing someone. You two have colluded with Naeem. Star laughed. Who was I going to have a relationship with? Why are you so skeptical? The daughter was surprised. You are young. beautiful. There are still many men around you. You can meet someone. Don't make me laugh. Where am I going to meet someone on the street or wait for some single and very attractive dad to bring his son to my office? I don't know, Mom, Borja reflected. I think it's not that complicated. The main thing is not to get lost. You have the right to happiness yourself. Star was walking among the shelves in the newborn area. At yesterday's ultrasound, they told her that the pregnancy was going well and that in a few months a healthy girl would be born. Star was beside herself with happiness. Her belly was already beginning to be noticed, but until now she had managed to hide the fact of her pregnancy from those around her. Even to Naeem she had not said anything. Star took seriously the preparation for the arrival of her future daughter. She made improvements to the baby's room. She bought a stroller and now she decided to take a look at the store to buy clothes, toys, and all kinds of things for her unborn daughter. Her eyes lit up. She took everything she liked without worrying about the price. She was eager to become a mother as soon as possible. And nothing else occupied her thoughts. Starry voice was heard behind her. It was Naeem. Star. She was startled. She did not expect to find her friend here. Naeem was examining the contents of Star's cart in surprise. Not only do you help children with consultations, but you also decided to provide humanitarian aid, Naeem joked. A woman is like a sentence. Naeem interrupted Star. I have no intention of stopping as a grandmother. Then nothing is understood in all this. For who is it? For me, or rather not at all for me. But wait, narrowed his eyes Naeem. You mean you're preparing to be a mother again? More or less, Star nodded. But what are you saying? Naeem covered her mouth with her hand. And you didn't tell me anything. And who is the father? How long have you been? It doesn't even look like you have a belly. It's been 4 months now. He sighed. Star. The father, Damaso, the father, the two of us, just before he left. Well, you understand, and here I am. Wow. And how did he react? No, Damaso. I'm sure he changed his mind about the divorce. You're not kidding. He doesn't even know anything. How does he really know nothing? No, you. You told no one, and for what now? He has his own life. How many times did I ask the boy? Did he explain his position? I can handle this alone. On that I have no doubt, Star said Naeem. But still, this is also his son. I think he has the right to know. I know. Star reflected. That's how he did it. On the one hand, I understand it. What is the point of living with a woman for whom you feel nothing and being like a zombie? Eating in silence, returning from work to an inhospitable home, accumulating irritation, all of this inside. Who cares? I would like that on the other hand, and what's on the other side? Star was thoughtful. What she had lost by losing her usual routine. Now she had a lot of time she could dedicate to herself. Soon in her life a person would appear whom she would love unconditionally without distractions from all this worldly hustle and desires and the offenses of others. You know, Naeem. She continued, the only thing that hurts me in Damaso's action is that he changed me for another. As a woman is wounded, is completely natural because they preferred someone younger, more beautiful, more interesting. He hit my self-esteem. I'm not going to argue with that, but so be it. I can't, and I don't want to influence it now. I have this feeling of inner freedom. Think for yourself. I lived a quarter of a century with Damaso, and I didn't see life. Everything was so sterile and correct. Now I have the opportunity to start over, and this baby God sent him, even though I had already lost hope. No, I don't want to talk to Damaso. Anyway, he will know. Star, your position is clear, but he is still the father and will help with money. I don't want my future daughter grow up watching pieces. It is easier not to mention anything to him, and what will he know? I will say that the child is not his. He will hardly realize that it is the father. Oh, friend, Naeem shook her head. It is your decision not to interfere, but I would have said it anyway. And how can you imagine that, going and announcing it from the beginning? I no longer want to have anything to do with Damaso. I just want to live and be happy, not to stress out, thinking that I am doing something wrong if I tell him he will want to participate in his daughter's life. Borja grew up as a wonderful person despite of our differences with ladies or in educational approaches, but how many antics we had to endure. Now I have the opportunity to do everything as I think is right. It sounds too selfish, don't you think? Smiled Naeem. And what was indignant? Star, I lived so many years exclusively for others. I have no right to live for myself. Well, Naeem sighed. It's also true, by the way. When is the trial? Tomorrow, said Star. Imagine, 2 months have already passed. Hey, why are they divorcing through the court? They have an adult daughter. They no longer have claims between them. Or is it that you can't divide the property? Yes, Star laughed. Imagine. I'm asking the ladies to leave me the apartment. I don't need anything else, nor cars or a house. But he refuses by law. Everything must be divided, and that's it. And why does he want it? This apartment can easily afford 5 like this. He was surprised. Naeem, that's what I can't understand at all. Apparently his new lady convinced him. He probably realizes that this apartment is not common. You can make a lot by selling it, and I don't care about the price. This is my house and I'm used to it. Why should I go somewhere good? I told Damaso that I don't agree with the divorce. If he insists, do you think the court will be on your side? I don't know. I consulted with a lawyer, and he said that if I renounce everything else and the value of this is equivalent to half of the apartment, the court will be in my favor. I am collecting the documents. Well, it would be easier to agree with Damaso. I will tell him that you are expecting a child. He will immediately agree with everything always. He seemed to be a decent person, and dividing an apartment is not in your style. Somehow, well, tomorrow everything will be resolved, hopefully soon. I don't even want to think about it. In the hallway in front of the courtroom, Star was sitting on a bench reading the latest news. She didn't notice how Damaso approached her. Well, hello, he greeted her. You're still determined, and you responded. Damn, I asked him not to come closer. Star, forgive me, I have already forgotten everything. It only bothers me that you are insisting on not divorcing on my terms. It does not cost you anything, but apparently you are proving something to your new partner. It is stupid. Do not insult us. And who is insulting Solo? I'm telling the truth. I didn't think you were so mean. And you, by the way, have gained weight. Damaso, Star suddenly observed, disconcerted. She buttoned her shirt to hide the slight bulge on her belly. It's because of nerves, she explained. A lot, especially at night. You are a psychologist. You should know how to deal with nerves. And you are an architect, commented ironically. Star, you should know how to build a life. Well, that's all. Damaso licked his lips nervously. If you don't want to do it in a good way, there will be problems. In a good way? You didn't want it yourself? Star said, and walked away from her husband just as her lawyer arrived in the courtroom. The air was thick. Star felt a wave of nausea, but she forced herself to overcome it. The judge turned out to be a man. Gloomy, not so young, who constantly shook his shoulders. The lawyer rolled his eyes when he saw it. Turns out that another judge was supposed to hear the case, but she suddenly went on sick leave, delegating everything to her colleague. According to the lawyer, her reputation was not the best. There was no hopes that he would take Star's side and listen to their demands while the judge read the case documents. Star looked at her husband. He smiled shamelessly. Damaso knew that his almost ex-wife had nothing to expect. His lawyer had already told him. Informed about the possible advantages of this trial, Estrella's head was spinning. The heat was overwhelming. Not even the open window let enough air into the room. Estrella was not paying attention to what was happening around her. All her thoughts were focused on the life that was growing inside her. She already imagined those little fingers and those half-closed eyes. She saw her daughter sleeping in the crib on which she was spinning a mobile with funny animals. Mrs. Jiménez, the judge's voice, brought out. Estrella, in your thoughts, do you have something to add? Tell us why you are denying a divorce to your husband. Estrella, your lawyer called you. I must tell you that our chances are slim. It seems that the judge has no intention of giving in. Your Honor, Estrella suddenly said, meaning that I cannot grant the divorce. I am expecting a child. In the room there was silence. Damaso stood with his mouth open. Even the secretary taking notes looked up. Star, what are you talking about? Suddenly Damaso reacted. One more child for. Please keep the silence, the judge interrupted. Mrs. Jiménez, please explain. This information is not in my documents. I found out after Damaso announced that he was leaving. I didn't want to tell him. Do you mean that this is my son? Who else's husband could he be? Indignant, replied Star. With sarcasm, Your Honor, I ask you to take this into account. I understand that I should have said it before, but given the new circumstances, I declare the court session closed. According to current legislation, 2 months are granted to the spouses for the reconciliation. If it does not occur, a new hearing will be scheduled. I request to attach supporting documents to the file. When Estrella left the courtroom, Damaso immediately approached and blocked him. El Paso, did you go crazy? He asked her, puzzled. Why didn't you tell me anything? And that would change something, he replied. Star, without flinching, how this is my son. Oh, now, you're talking. Not long ago you didn't want to hear anything. Borja knows. No, I haven't said anything to our daughter. I was afraid she would tell you right away. Star, we have to make a decision. Are you sure the child is mine? You are making fun of who else could be. From the Holy Spirit. I got pregnant after anniversary. I don't have anyone else. If you have doubts, let's do a DNA test. You will only waste time. You won't get the child anyway. She will be my daughter. Only my daughter, you know? Until the gender. Wait, then you are already in the 4th or 5th month. Yes, said Star dryly. Damaso, listen, let's solve this quickly. I want you to disappear from our life. If you want a child, Amaya will give you one in this girl. She will never know about you. Don't make things up. You can't forbid me from seeing her. You like going to court. Well, you will have that entertainment. But keep in mind that I will get my thing anyway. Don't think that everything can be bought. You have shown yourself to be an immoral person. You abandoned your pregnant wife. And you left with a younger lover. I did not skimp on lawyers to achieve my goal. I did not know about your pregnancy. He tried to justify himself, Damaso, and if you had really known, you would have stayed. Don't make me laugh. You've had a long time. Lover, now don't wait. Reconciliation. Star, forget everything between us. There is nothing else. When this is over, I will ask you not to appear in our life again. And don't try to bribe later. I can even not ask for food, although honestly I would love to bother you. How much will be half of your income? For the good boy will be much better than for your redhead. We will see what she will say later, and all for not leaving the apartment to me. We would be living in peace now. She walked away quickly without giving Damaso the opportunity to say a word to him. On his way, he met again the young redhead who was shamelessly mocking, but when he saw Estrella, somehow he instantly shrunk. Don't expect to get everything so easily, he told her. Star achieved his goal when the deadline given ran out for the reconciliation of the spouses. A hearing was scheduled again this time. Star started the divorce proceedings. The judge, a complete woman with curls in her hair, quickly took the side of the deceived wife. Not only she granted all of Star's requests, but also forced Damaso to pay alimony for the future child. Star felt bad about herself. She had never been an unpleasant woman, but circumstances forced her to take on that role. Her relationship with Damaso was completely ruined. Amaya called her several times, but Estrella hung up immediately without wanting to have anything to do with that woman. A few months later, Estrella was due to give birth when Borja found out about her mother's pregnancy. Immediately leaving everything behind. Mom, why did you hide this from me? I will have a little sister. Who? I would have thought. I was completely disconcerted. Dear, I was afraid that you would tell your father. I wouldn't have told him anything. Borja objected. Do you think that because he spoiled me in childhood, I would take his side? None of that. I'm used to judging people by their actions, and he treated you so badly by giving in to such base desires. I don't agree with that, and now it turns out that you've taught his new wife a lesson, so daddy should give half as much his income for this baby. Well, not half of it. We agreed on 8% of everything. The funniest thing is that this fool even doubts his paternity. When the girl is born, he intends to do a DNA test, and if necessary, challenge the court's decision. Never. I thought Dad would be so vulnerable. It seems that lady is not having the best effect on him. Mom, have you already thought of a name for my little sister? No, daughter. Of I will decide when she is born. I can't plan those things so far in advance. When you were in my belly, your dad and I considered many names. I was even willing to call you Karya. Trid. Seriously? Borja laughed. Seriously? It seems that in those moments his head was a little cloudy. In the end, when you were born, we even forgot what names we were considering. I look at you and I understand. Borja, my little Borja. Dad told a completely different story. He smiled. The girl said that he was inspired by some actress. I don't remember her last name. He said that you looked a lot like her when you were just born. Yes, a typical joke of his. Mom, you need help with something? Don't even think about quitting your job. I can handle it perfectly. Or you think your mother is already old? But Mom, how do you plan to combine work and taking care of the baby? I've already thought about it, said Star. I'll do consultations at home. I'll turn Dad's office into my own workspace, and I will hire a babysitter. I already agreed with a woman who used to work with me. She is a very decent lady, a first-class educator. She raised her own children and grandchildren. She was delighted when I approached her. Plus, she will only need to help me during business hours. Work. I will solve the other problems as they arise. After talking to his daughter, Star felt relief. It comforted him to see that all the effort dedicated to raising Borja was not in vain. Despite Damaso's attempts to spoil his daughter, he only managed to do so temporarily. Even in this situation, Borja took his mother's side. After attending to some Star patients, he went for a walk. For some reason, he wanted to take advantage of the break for something different instead of eating another portion of pasta. The one on which she had leaned in recent days had gained a little weight in her belly, and although Estrella could accept it, her round cheeks seemed unsightly. She decided to take a walk in the park that was 1 block from her office. On the way, she bought a large glass of freshly squeezed juice. Sitting on a bench, squinted at the bright sun, and breathed in the aroma of fallen leaves. It was September, and that year it turned out to be unusually warm. Star looked around while enjoying her juice. Suddenly, a man came up distracting me to look for his phone together. They checked everything around them, but didn't find anything. Could he call me? He asked. Yes, of course, he agreed. After a few seconds, a sound was heard coming from the grass. The man bent down and picked up the phone. I didn't even notice that it fell. Thank you very much for your help, he said. You're welcome. The star smiled. Sorry for my lack of tact, he suddenly said. The stranger. You're pregnant, doesn't it show? You know, today in day pregnant women are not always easy to identify immediately. And for what purpose? Questions worried star. Suddenly, I am not sure how much you may be interested in my offer. I understand that I am an obstetrician gynecologist. It is not the best place for advertising, I understand, but I would like to recommend you our clinic. Oh, I understand, smiled star. Frankly, it sounds strange, although I wouldn't say that I am completely satisfied with my current doctor. He has a good clinic, of course, he nodded. The man is understandable for any owner to say that, but I really have a very good clinic. Both the doctors who work with me and all the staff. Here is a card in case you change your mind. I will be happy to have you among our patients. Thank you. Of course, Star took the card extended by the man. What was Dr. Alberto Ramos saying? My God, it's the same Dr. Ramos. You've probably heard about me when you were looking for a doctor for your medical care. No, that's not it. Star. He even got confused and didn't tell me. Do you honestly remember? Didn't he admit? Did you previously work at the 7th Maternity Hospital? Oh, that was a long time ago. I had just left the residency. That was a few years ago. You assisted me in my first birth, Jiménez, Estrella said. Estrella with joy. The memories flooded her immediately. That day, it seemed to her the most terrifying of all. She wanted to die from the pains of childbirth, and when they took her to the hospital and told her that the birth would be attended by a man and also quite young, she was ready to sink to the ground. Contrary to his expectations, the doctor turned out to be a professional. In addition, the man constantly joked, trying to distract Star from the pain. It was thanks to him that Borja came into the world. What a coincidence, Alberto exclaimed sincerely. Then you could say that. Fate has brought us together again. Alberto, I will be there. I'm delighted to be your patient again. You should see how big my first daughter has grown. Well, that's your credit, not mine. So you'll come. Il come. Nodded. Sure. Star. I don't believe in simple coincidences. Even today. I usually have lunch near work and suddenly I felt like going for a walk, and it turns out that I meet the person who attended my birth a quarter of a century ago, and he is also proposing to me again. It can only be destiny. Think about it. So many years have passed. I would never have thought that you were my former patient. You look young. If your daughter already has one, you can't have less than, and I would give you at most. What's going on? Star blushed. If you knew that my husband left me, calling me old, you wouldn't say that. How come? He left. He was surprised. Alberto couldn't be, and he really got you pregnant. Oh, it's a long story. No, I didn't know about the baby. He just left with a young lover. It didn't affect me much. You live with someone for many years, and then you realize that he didn't even. I loved you, but life must go on. When I found out about imminent motherhood, I felt like I had been changed immediately. I wanted to change something to grow in some aspect. I even wanted to change something at work. And what do you do if? It's not a secret, the man asked. I'm a psychologist. Child, although more than children's problems, I have to solve the problems of their parents. It is a good job. So we are colleagues in something apparently. Yes, even colleagues in the situation, the man added sadly. How is that? I also got divorced recently, approximately in the same circumstances. I lived years with my wife, and suddenly she asks for a divorce. She was tired of me, always working. It was difficult for her to deal with everything that was happening. At first, I didn't even understand what she was dealing with. It was difficult to deal with. We don't have children. That's how it turned out. I took care of her all her life. She was surrounded by care and love. Of course, the clinic took a lot of my strength and time, so she decided to have a relationship outside of marriage. It's even silly to find yourself in a situation like that. We always argued. Everything. We really couldn't avoid all this somehow. Then you loved her, and she betrayed you. Well, actually, that's what happened. The divorce affected me a lot. I thought everything had lost meaning, but somehow I managed to recover. Just at that moment, we opened a new branch in our clinic. I had no time to suffer, and now I don't even remember it. This is how it happened, Star Alberto said. Suddenly, since today is such a strange day, I will take the risk of making you another offer. Maybe you will accept. I will invite you out to dinner tonight. Suddenly surprised, asked Star, and how else? I really like talking to you. I have the night free and I have reserved a table at the restaurant. If you don't have plans, would you mind keeping me company? I don't even know. The woman blushed. It won't be strange. Why is it quite natural for two adults to have dinner together and discuss some important matter? When you mention an important matter, you mean this. She stroked her belly, And why don't I tell you everything about our clinic? We will find a doctor. Although I could take care of you personally, Star blushed. I couldn't understand if this man was flirting with her or saw her exclusively as an object of professional interest. It would be strange to flirt with an adult, pregnant woman, and a dinner at a restaurant did not seem appropriate for a professional interest, but Estrella liked Alberto. He was charming, and his soft smile spread joy. She did not know what communication with this man would bring her, but her soul desperately longed for positive emotions. So she accepted the doctor's offer. Where should I pick you up? Alberto asked myself. I will arrive, not in your state. You should not stress yourself unnecessarily on the way. It's okay. She smiled and gave him her address. What's going on here? Star thought while finishing her work. I'll need some dress. I can't go to the restaurant like this, and with my belly wearing a dress is a disaster. Well, I'll go look for something in the Star store. She experienced real despair. Everything she liked looked horrible on her. She was already leaving when the young advisor brought her an elegant dress. Please look at this option. The girl showed Estrella a loose dark blue dress. She went to the fitting room and came out very satisfied. Perfect, she announced happily. I didn't even think she could find something. And in this one, you don't even notice the belly that much. Took Estrella came home quickly. She fixed her hair and put on makeup. As soon as she finished, Alberto called and said he was already there. When Estrella left the building, the man helped her get into the car. You look beautiful, he smiled, even though I felt somewhat inferior next to you. What do you say Rio? Star Alberto. The man is not underestimated. He looked exceptional. How do you feel about Italian cuisine? I hope positive. In the restaurant we go to now, an excellent chef works. He is Italian, but he has lived here for many years, and he believes that local people should know the true cuisine of their land. I tell him, it comes out wonderfully. It will be interesting to try it. Star agreed. I can't say that I have any preference. The main thing is that it be delicious. Well, with that there won't be any problems. The restaurant turned out to be very cozy, and the dishes were exquisite and homemade at the same time. Finally, in the last few weeks, the Star was able to relax. Alberto turned out to be a very interesting conversationalist. It seemed that this man could support any topic of conversation. The conversation. It flowed so relaxed. After dinner, the doctor took the woman home. Well, he began a little embarrassed. Thank you, Star, for the wonderful evening. I hope to see you at the clinic. Come when it is convenient for you. Tell them immediately that you are coming to see me. I don't know how to thank you. I had a great time today. I haven't gone anywhere lately. We can organize outings like this periodically. I'm totally in favor of it, Alberto suddenly said. I hope you didn't find my offer rude. I don't see the point in limiting myself in communication with such a wonderful lady. Besides, you say that you also enjoy it. I will think about it. Estrella blushed. Estrella had the feeling that her new acquaintance was rushing things, but in one thing she was right. Estrella enjoyed the company. When she got home, she immediately called Naim. Estrella was eager to share her impressions. Naim said happily, you can't imagine what's happening. Star, wait, why are you so excited today? I met a man. Oh, Naim said, wow, friend. No, it's not like that. Star interrupted her. You didn't understand well. Can you believe that sometimes coincidences happen in life? Today I went for a walk in the park, something I never do, and suddenly this man approaches me to introduce himself. It turns out that he was the doctor who treated me when I gave birth. Can you imagine? But the most interesting is that he is the medical director of a private clinic. He proposed me to be his patient. A dubious romance, said Naim. I thought you had someone in your life. Well, more or less, he said suddenly. Star, in fact, we went to dinner. Wow, how did they do it so quickly? That's how it happened to me. He invited me. I thought, why say no? And you know, I had such a good time. I completely forgot about my problems. Alberto is a very interesting person. So gentlemanly. Yes, the friend reflected. And what do you think? Is it something serious between you? Seriously, we just met. But I'll go to his clinic. I looked at it. It's one of the best, and Alberto Ramos himself is an exceptional doctor. I don't know. He's interesting, of course. He started courting a pregnant woman. He didn't start courting. We just chatted. You could say he's professional with a professional, and he is married. He was divorced a couple of years ago. His wife left with her lover. You can imagine, almost like my situation. So they are friends in misfortune. Well, everything is clear, dear. I feel that soon we will be celebrating a wedding. Oh, calm down, silly. I'm not really thinking in that. And if I simply got used to the lack of male attention, well, it's too early to talk about something like that. After talking to her friend, Estrella took a shower and lay down in bed. It was difficult for her to fall asleep while she thought about Alberto. He had touched something inside her. It turns out that she had never experienced a real feeling towards a man. Of course, when she started dating Damaso, there was a certain romantic connection. Before him, the star had had boyfriends, but she didn't feel anything serious for any of them. The feeling that arose in her soul today was completely different. However, the star did not believe in love at first sight. She considered such ideas as inventions of naive girls and hopeless romantics. She did not identify with any of those groups. Gradually, Estrella fell asleep. The next day, she went to Alberto's clinic. When he said her name, they took her immediately to the office. Alberto was sitting behind the desk. The white robe looked very good on him. "Here I am," said Estrella, shyly. "Estrella, I'm glad to see you." "Sincerely, I thought I didn't scare you at all yesterday," the woman laughed. "I don't discuss everything. It seemed a little strange, but life is complicated. I think you have to accept everything that happens as a wonderful reality, perspective. So where do we start? I brought all the reports and documents I had here. Take a look at them, please." She handed Alberto a thick folder with papers. The doctor examined the contents for a long time and attentively, occasionally frowning or nodding his head. "Well," he began. When he reviewed all the documents, "From what I see, the pregnancy is progressing normally. There are no pathologies or reasons to worry. Let's do an ultrasound and then we'll see." "It's fine," he agreed. The service at the hospital was great. Estrella liked it a lot. The doctors who worked here were friendly and highly qualified. She visited some consultations, she underwent some tests, and returned to Alberto. "So how is it?" She winked at him. "He was incredible. I honestly thought that all private clinics were more or less the same before this. I also received care in a similar place, but yours is completely different. You immediately feel that the doctors are interested in the result, not just in making money. I am glad that you do. Have you noticed when I opened the clinic, I personally selected the staff, including the cleaners. For me, it was very important that the patients felt as comfortable and safe as possible. And in general, how did you get into private medicine?" "I understand that it is a stupid question. Surely everything is about of money, but not everything." Shook his head Alberto. "You see, my ex-wife couldn't have children. So absurd. A husband, a well-known gynecologist, and couldn't solve the problem in his own family. When I realized that state medicine was impotent, I decided to deal with it myself. At some point, Amaya resigned herself to the fact that she would never be a mother. No matter how much I persuaded her that not everything was lost, it was in vain. We even wanted to adopt a child, but she closed herself off herself somehow. And then I don't know why she gave up. As soon as she's only years old, there's always a chance, but apparently she got tired. She immersed herself in work. She started with the renovations, and then she just left. Maybe she blamed me for everything. You know, times something happens, it clicks in your head, and against all analysis and common sense, you begin to blame those around you for your problem. Amaya became convinced that she could not have children precisely because of me. Logically, it was assumed that she would still want to find another man." The mistress suddenly asked Estrella when she saw how Alberto's eyes were losing their shine. She didn't shake her head. "I don't think I couldn't forgive him after all. The betrayal. I tried to get her back at first, but when I saw her with that architect, I decided to give up." "Which architect did she ask?" "Star with the one she chose. Frankly, I don't even remember his name, although I once wanted to hit him in the face." "Alberto, and let me ask you a question. Maybe it will seem strange to you. His ex-wife had red hair." "Yes. And what was the doctor surprised?" "It seems that she is with my ex-husband. In short, it's even fun, but they are together." "That can't be." Alberto got up from his chair. "Honestly, I'm not completely sure. There are many coincidences. His name is Amaya. The age and the box he left with a architect 2 years ago. Everything fits. You have photos of him." Star took out her phone to find a photo of Damaso. "Here, take a look. Isn't this the man she chose?" Alberto looked at the photo of Star's ex-husband for a long time, and carefully, then tired, he returned to he fell into his chair and handed the phone back to him. "Yes, I'm afraid to admit it, but it's the same person." "What a news." Star frowned. "It seems like we really are friends." "Unfortunately, you don't think there are too many coincidences in the last few days?" "I don't know what to think," said Alberto. Estrella noticed that her revelation deeply affected Alberto's state of mind. She herself found it uncomfortable. "Alberto listens. It started suddenly, and that really changes something. I mean, who cares who left, who you stay here and I." The last words were spoken with hesitation. Alberto noticed it and looked at her intensely. He watched her for a long time before unexpectedly smiling. "You're right, Star. Everyone has their own life. We have to move on and not regret what happened." What happened? Why don't we meet again in a more informal environment? Star gave birth to a beautiful girl whom she decided to call Julia. Alberto was present at the birth. By that time they were already dating. Star was not ready to live with him. She did not want rush things. However, he felt that the relationship was very serious. Alberto was a direct person. He clearly expressed his thoughts and desires. Maybe that was what captivated Estrella. In addition to his dedication and care, Alberto was not at all bothered by his pregnancy. Beloved, on the contrary, he protected her and did everything possible to make her pregnancy easier. When Julia Alberto was born, he was as happy as if it were his own star child, he said. When he entered the room, while she was feeding the little girl, holding her to her chest, "I think we need be serious." "What's wrong?" Star asked in a whisper. "Star, don't argue with me now, but when you're discharged we'll go live at my house. It can't be tried to resist." "Star, stop resisting now. You have a double responsibility. You shouldn't be left alone." "I already agreed with the babysitter. I gave her the keys to prepare the apartment." "No, Alberto, it's too early. Give me a little more time. Or you can move in with us without problems," the doctor almost shouted, but he stopped in time. "No matter where, let's live alone. I want to always be close to you and the girl, and it's safer this way." "Safer in what sense?" "Honestly, I'm worried that your ex-husband will insist on seeing his daughter if he suddenly shows up. I want there to be someone trustworthy nearby. We already resolved everything with him. I don't think he'll come." "Don't underestimate the H's. They rarely give up. The fact that he accepted your conditions so easily is already suspicious." "You think?" Estrella frowned. "I guess so." Alberto smiled and kissed the woman on the forehead. "Well, rest for now, and I will come later." When Star was discharged from the hospital, Naim and Borja arrived. The women were standing holding a huge bouquet of flowers and a beautifully wrapped box. "Mom," said Borja, excitedly seeing her mother with the baby in her arms, "show me my little sister like this. That your dream it came true." Star cried. Naim. Borja goes back. "I also want to see her. After all, she is my niece, and probably in a short time my goddaughter," added. The women looked at the little girl, while Star laughed. "Well, ladies, let's go." Alberto suddenly said, who joined them. "It's cold here. We don't want the little girl to catch a cold." "Oh," said Naim. "Of course. Let's get into the car quickly." Everyone got into Alberto Borja's SUV with their mother and the baby. They settled in the back seat while Naim sat down next to Alberto. Estrella's best friend watched the man attentively throughout the entire trip. Estrella, she is lucky, she thought. She found a man like that. I told her that happiness would come. Alberto never listens to me. Of course, he is an incredible man, and he accepted her and the baby. And he seems willing to carry everything. I just hope that Damaso doesn't show up." When they arrived at the gate and began to get out of the car, a man got out of a nearby car and approached them. Mom pulled Borja out of her mother's coat. "Just don't be nervous. Here he comes." "Dad, my God." Star got worried. "Quickly, come with Alberto to the portal and we distract Naim." But it was already late. Damaso approached, taking advantage of the fact that Alberto was taking out the basket for the newborn and some bags at that moment. "Hello, Star," Damaso said. "Hello," the ex-wife responded. "What are you here?" "I knew they would discharge you today. I wanted to see the girl." Damaso pressed the baby against her. At that moment, Alberto approached and blocked the women with him. "How can I help?" Damaso asked. "See my daughter. I think Star has left you. Of course, that's not going to happen. If you don't agree, take the case to court. At the end of the day, you love to resolve everything legally. I don't need you to tell me. I came to see my wife, and I will talk to her with your ex-wife, ladies. Or don't forget it," said Star. Alberto said it correctly. "If you don't like something, go to court. Meanwhile, what to talk about?" I decide that she quickly headed towards the entrance, accompanied by Alberto and Naim. Damaso wanted to follow them, but Borja, she stopped, taking him by the arm. "Dad, don't you see that now is not the time for her? Wait a little. I'm sure that Mom won't. She'll be mad at you forever." "You think?" Damaso said. "It seems to me that she's turned into a harpy." "Well, you brought it on yourself, and Mom didn't. She is not at all a harpy. I think this pregnancy has affected her a lot, and without a doubt, give her time. I will try to convince her." "Okay, daughter," Damaso agreed. "And since you're in the city, you could stop by to say hello. Amaya really wants to meet you." "I don't think it's the right thing to do, Dad. And bye. She's not a good woman. Don't judge her so harshly." "Okay, Dad. I'll think about it. I'll try to pass. But in reality, I'll leave soon. I have work ready. I've already put the girl to bed." Star sighed as she entered the kitchen where the others were waiting for her. "I can't believe she's here." Here's so tiny and real weight now. She will start to grow quickly, laughed Naim. Well, Naim, what's wrong? The children don't grow so fast. Oh, how much do you know? Answered Naim. When you have yours, you will remember my words. Well, girls, don't fight, Star intervened. Let's celebrate. Suit juice of tomato, we are going to celebrate. And what have I gotten myself into? Said Naim. Ladies, Alberto entered the kitchen with a huge bag. Here is the delivery. Now we will organize a feast. Alberto, and you, what do you think about tomato juice, and what are they already serving it? Asked the man. Yes, Mom is behind the bar today, Borja pointed out to Estrella, who was pouring tomato juice into glasses. At nightfall, everyone dispersed and Estrella was left alone with Alberto. The girl fell asleep a couple of times, but after receiving her portion of milk, she fell asleep again. Peacefully, Alberto thinks he started. Star, you imagine that he just appeared like that suddenly? I told you, think. And if we move to my house? He did not respond. Star with indecision. You are close. I have nothing to fear, but somehow we have to solve this problem. Do you think that if it carries this in court, we'll have the right to see his daughter? No, you are not necessarily the mother. Your opinion will be a priority. I simply do not want him to participate in his life in any way I can even waive alimony. I do not need his money. Let me consult with a lawyer. Okay, side. Star Julia was already half a year old. It was May. Star had a day off, so she decided to take a walk with her daughter in the park. Alberto was working, and Star asked the babysitter for help with food. She wanted to enjoy a walk at some point. This park used to be the favorite place for her family to walk. Damaso always tried to climb the old tree, which made Borja laugh. At that time, the Star thought she was the happiest in the world, but now walking with the stroller realized that the moment of happiness really arrived at that moment. Julia was dozing peacefully in the stroller, and a soft breeze stirred the Star air. A male voice was heard behind her. The woman turned. Damaso approached quickly. Damaso waited for him. Star responded coldly, what else do you need? I can't take it anymore. Let's solve everything like adults. Silence, don't shout. Star interrupted him in a loud whisper. You'll wake up the little girl. Damaso stayed still and looked inside the room where she was sleeping. Julia is so beautiful, he murmured, fascinated. So similar to Borja. Of course she looks alike. The parents are the same. Damaso, listen. I'll tell you again since you don't understand. Julia is not your daughter. She's mine, of course. You're her biological father, but that doesn't mean anything at all. No. You wanted to have a child, you didn't want to be with me. Why now try to go against your own principles? Everything has changed. Star, what has changed? Have you separated from your Amaya? No, said Damaso sadly. I love Amaya, but she can't have children, he asked suddenly. Star, yes. How do you know? Surprised. Her ex-husband asked. I have my sources. Then it's true. So Alberto had nothing to do with it, she murmured, barely audible to herself. What did Damaso hear? And what does your Alberto have to do with it? It's a long story. Ask your lady. Don't worry. I understand, and you don't need to understand anything. Damaso, I beg you, don't get in the way now. You have your own life, we have ours. I'm sorry, but there is no place for you in it. Star, I beg you, what do you need? I will get on my knees. Goodbye. Damaso. Star was walking away quickly. At one point it seemed to her that her ex-husband was reaching for her, but when she turned around she saw that he was kneeling directly on the shop with her expensive coat. Soon the day of the trial arrived. Damaso presented documents without informing Estrella. At the hearing, her ex-husband was accompanied by prominent lawyers, but Star did not come alone. The hearing did not last long. The judge sided with the mother. The child, despite being conceived in a relationship, he was born out of wedlock. His behavior was considered immoral. Also, Star. He mentioned several times that Damaso did not want to be a father again. He also waived alimony despite the efforts of Damaso's lawyers. The mother's opinion was decisive. Damaso was denied visits with his daughter when he left the courtroom. Star Court caught her ex-husband's gaze. He was completely lost for a second. Star felt sorry for him, but the feeling disappeared quickly. You see, Damaso, money doesn't solve everything. You're wrong, Star, you're wrong, he said, and left for some reason. That's why those words scared Estrella a lot. There was something in her ex-husband's intonation and in his look that caused concern. She immediately told Alberto. Well, he reflected. I think we shouldn't rule it out. Today's situation could lead him to desperate measures. What are you talking about? He asked. Estrella is scared. That's bad. I don't know what she's capable of, but we have to be extremely attentive. I insist that they move into my house. I don't like this at all. Estrella's hands were shaking. Damaso's look scared her. Deeply, she herself did not know what her ex-husband was capable of. A little hesitant, Estrella finally agreed to move. They took only the essentials with them. Alberto said that he would soon send the movers to move the rest. When Estrella found herself in her lover's apartment, she immediately felt safe. Everything. In her house, she radiated confidence. Did you live here with Amaya? She asked. No, of course. She shook her head. Alberto, I left her the apartment. She started renovating it before the divorce. I didn't want to deprive her of. That became literally obsessed due to the impossibility of having children on purpose. Suddenly remembered. Star, do you remember that I told you how I met Damaso in the park? Yes, of course. He doesn't know that she is your ex-wife. Anyway, we talked about Julia and I asked him directly if his wife could having children. He was very surprised, wondering where I knew about that problem. Turns out I was right after all. He scratched his chin. Alberto gives me the impression that Damaso really wants to have children and Aya can't give them to him. That's why he tries to have contact with Julia. Although he said that he loves Maya, he just won't leave her just like that. Yes, it's a problem. I just hope that her obsession doesn't affect him. Honestly, it's a little scary. But despite the star's fears and Alberto Damaso, he didn't take any action. There seemed to be disappeared completely without reminding them of their existence in any way. Alberto, darling, Star's voice sounded worried. I don't want to be a burden for you. What happened, Star? Everything is fine. I must urgently receive a patient here today and I can't reject him. He is a child with problems. I need to stay. Can you pick up Julia from kindergarten and take her to her classes and I will be free, and then I will pick her up myself? Of course, dear, no problem. Just call them and tell them that Dad will pick her up today. There is everything type of people. Yes, of course. Now I warn you, Star. And Alberto got married when Julia turned 1 year old. The man officially adopted her, recognizing her as his daughter. Developed a strong affection for the girl now. Julia is years old and growing up. She quickly showed herself to be very talented as she grew older. Her parents enrolled her in Chinese classes for young children. Despite her young age, the girl showed remarkable interest and abilities. The teacher always praised her little student, using her as an example for the other children. This filled her with joy. Estrella Julia was proud to have been going to these language classes for a year, and now her mother was seriously considering enrolling her in drawing classes. Alberto, of course, complained. It seemed to him that the burden for the girl at that age would be excessive, but the energetic Julia was ready to argue with her stepfather, demonstrating her achievements. Hello, I'm Star Ramos. I wanted to let you know that today the father will come for Julia. Yes, I'm late at work. It's okay, thank you. The patient that Star ABA was a difficult child. The parents of the boy held important positions in the city administration and in some ministry. The boy was only years old, but his emotional state was extremely unstable whenever there were problems. They were usually with the parents, but in this situation, everything was more complicated. Estrella had a difficult night ahead of her. When the child was brought in, she turned off the phone and asked Telma not to connect her with anyone. The session was very exhausting for Estrella. The child needed a psychiatrist, but the parents they refused to recognize that their son had problems of this type. Of course, Star, she was willing to do everything possible. After agreeing with the child's mother, the next consultation, she turned on the phone, immediately received messages from Alberto. With a gloomy feeling, Star opened the first message. Star called immediately. Some messages followed with more or less the same content. What happened? There, Star was worried. I hope everyone is well. She dialed her husband's number, and they responded immediately. My God, Star. Finally, Alberto's voice sounded worried. Alberto, what's wrong? Where are you? Where is Julia now? I'm at the police station. Immediately see the address. What happened? When they mentioned the police station, police. Star started to shake. For now, just come ahead of time. Don't worry. In short, I came to kindergarten and Julia was no longer there. Star's legs became weak. What she heard turned out to be her worst nightmare. Somehow gathering strength, she asked how come the teacher was not there. She said that her father picked her up. Estrella slowly slid to the ground. How did he take her? Come as quickly as possible. I'll call a taxi. Don't you dare get behind the wheel. You're not fit. I hope, Estrella responded. World collapsed. Star understood perfectly that her daughter was not in the hands of criminals. Damaso reached the girl, but how again? A coincidence, or maybe he knew that today the father had to pick up the girl. No, this already seemed like paranoia. Suddenly Star remembered that Alberto mentioned his ex-wife's obsession. That's really contagious. And if Damaso also became obsessed with the idea of having a child, they had clearly planned it. Together alone, he would never have dared in any case. It was necessary to act if Damaso had. Having prepared everything so carefully, He could easily have taken care of the documents that would allow him to take the girl abroad, and there all the possibilities of a happy ending could have disappeared. He staggered out of the taxi. Alberto was already in the investigator's office, according to the teacher's testimony. Around 9 a.m., a well-dressed man arrived at the kindergarten, introducing himself as Julia's father. As Star had already called in advance, he had no suspicions. Julia obediently left with. He didn't even ask for documents. Star asked. Apparently his call was enough. We are taking care of this. Tell me, has your ex-husband tried something similar before? He didn't respond. Indecisive. Star. See, Alberto intervened years ago when Julia had just been born. Damaso tried to take an active role in her life, but he tried bad. Star. The wife turned out to be firm and forbade him to see the daughter. Yes, and after the trial I still remember his look. He threatened you. The investigator asked. No good. I wouldn't say it was a threat. He just looked like that and said something like useless. Get on like that, useless. Star. And then he tried to contact us in some way. We didn't actually move. Almost immediately. He didn't even know where we lived, but he didn't call. He didn't follow us. If that's what you're referring to, I understand. The investigator wrote something down in his notebook. Listen, Alberto said suddenly. I don't know if this has to do with the case. At the time, my ex-wife became obsessed with the idea of having a child. Physiologically, she couldn't be a mother. We spent a lot of effort and resources to solve that problem. Well, that's fine, but what does it have to do with this? Now she lives with Damaso. Apparently they have some shared obsession. They both want to have a child so much that they are willing to commit a crime. I won't believe that Amaya didn't know about Damas or Damaso's plans kidnapping the girl. This is already more interesting. What a soap opera you have. Okay, we will solve it. I need all your possible addresses and contacts for now. Go home. As soon as there is something I will inform you immediately. The husbands went to house all the way. Estrella was crying and Alberto didn't even try to calm her down. Alberto, I'm so scared. She was sobbing. And if he takes Julia abroad, then we'll never see her again. I don't think he would. Even if he tried, there are already alerts about him in all the airports. Thank God I arrived almost immediately after him and raised the alarm. Now I blame myself for being late for a few minutes. It's not your fault, Alberto. This is all my fault. I should have picked up Julia on my own. How am I going to live now? Star tries to calm down. It's too early to reflect on these things. I think the investigators will be able to quickly track down Damaso and Maya. It's not so easy to disappear without a trace in our days, and if they prepared well, I don't rule out that possibility beforehand. You know, let's hire a private detective. I had been working with one of those guys, and it really helped. Seriously, I thought that only happened in movies. You joke. I can call him right now and fix it. Do you want? Of course I want. All I want is hug my daughter as soon as possible, as Alberto promised. He contacted a private detective. Minutes later, a robust, solid-looking man, slightly older, was already in his apartment. He listened attentively to the spouses, took the necessary notes, and got down to work. The work immediately became the star and did not have much hope of success. The woman fell into deep despair. Alberto did not know how to help her. He watched in silence as his wife wandered around the house. He sat for a long time in the girl's room and he was crying. It also affected him. Even though Julia was not his biological daughter, he had become very attached to the little girl who called him dad. What happened demoralized both of them in the depths of their being. Alberto believed that not everything was lost yet. Although he understood that in a situation like that was not worth having much hope for success. Since Julia's kidnapping, 2 weeks have passed. The police have not been able to find the kidnappers. Damas or Yamaya literally vanished. Officially, they did not leave the country. But, considering the man's capabilities, they could have easily done it by alternative routes. Star became more and more closed in on herself. She couldn't work. She lost weight considerably, and even with Alberto, she behaved in a very reserved manner. The woman didn't leave her apartment and didn't receive visitors. Not even Naeem. She managed to get her friend to talk. Alberto told her, she has to do something. This can't go on for long. And what does your detective say? He's at a dead end. Imagine there's no clue about that. Couple obviously planned this crime for a long time, and carefully. OMG, poor Julia lamented. Not just imagine being in her place alone away from her beloved parents in the company of two completely unknown people. The girl is probably crying all the time. How much time has passed? 2 weeks. True, I can't imagine how you feel right now. In general, I don't understand how it is possible to disappear without a trace in the modern world. There are cameras everywhere. Phones in the end can be traced with a map, or that he withdrew all the cash. Yes, he did take out money. The detective said it shortly before the kidnapping. He emptied his accounts. How he is moving with that amount of cash is not understood at all, but the detective believes that precisely for this reason, it is unlikely that the kidnappers have left the country. Rather, they are hiding somewhere, maybe in another city. How are we going to find them? Naeem exclaimed with his hands up. Star will end in the H at this rate. Alberto, do something. Naeem, what can I do? I'm not some kind of superhero. I am an ordinary person. If I could, I would have done everything a long time ago. But here I am completely helpless. You know, the strangest thing is that Damaso has not even contacted Borja. He has not called him, even once, even though they got along well. And what's so strange about that now? He can't allow himself to reveal himself in details. He understands perfectly well that even a 1-minute call would give the opportunity to track him. No, Naeem, that man is not stupid. Something doesn't. Leave me alone. How did Damaso know that Julia wouldn't come to? Picking up the Star hardly acted without reason, and here everything is simple, smiled Alberto. My detective found it out very quickly. Telma, well, the Star's secretary simply gave him all the information. He paid her well for any details of the Star's life. Then she listened to our conversation with my wife, in which she asked me to pick up our daughter, and immediately conveyed everything to Damaso. How unfortunate, and worked with the Star for many years. Business is Naeem, Alberto said tiredly. People by nature are greedy, and Estrella knows it. I spoke to her, but I think at this moment she cannot process information at all. Time passed, but nothing changed. The location of Julia and her kidnappers remained unknown. Little by little Estrella recovered, but her mental health was seriously affected. When a year had passed since the kidnapping, the Star already understood that she could not get her daughter back. It was necessary to try to start again, Alberto said. She said, leaving the room. I can't take it anymore. I feel that I need to let go. Situation. A year has passed and nothing has changed. I don't even know if my daughter is alive or not. Star hugged her husband. All we have left is to wait and believe. No matter how things develop, we need to keep living. But I don't want to cry. Star, without Julia, nothing makes sense at all. Listen, dear, tried to calm her. Alberto, you have Borja to me, and above all yourself. I am not asking you to throw in the towel and simply forget about Julia, but sitting here aimlessly, that will help. On something the detective is still working. Of course, finding something is practically impossible, but we keep looking. You need to recover somehow. What if we go somewhere? And if something is known, and if we leave and she shows up? Dear, that is unlikely. I understand what your mother. Your heart does not allow you to think about yourself, but believe me, now it is the best decision to take care of your emotional well-being. Also, if we find out something, we will go immediately. You understand, right, Alberto? I can't. You can just do it. Now you have. Afraid you just need to distract yourself. I can't see how my favorite woman just fades away before my eyes. That's all. Before, when I felt bad, I went to a place there is a special energy. It always helped to put my thoughts in order. What do you say if we go away for a week? Maybe that will help. Where is that? Asked weakly interested Star. Is it in the Canary Islands? I was born there, and then when I went to school we moved here, but I used to go there frequently. There is a sea, a wonderful bay. Mountains. Now is the right season. The weather is wonderful, and there are few tourists go there at the end of April, and in general I would like to show you the places where I was born. Have you ever been there? No. Somehow we start going abroad immediately. If we go to the sea, it is to Bulgaria or Turkey. More reason. So you don't know what you've missed. There are such wonderful places. Well, still, said Star, undecided. If you think it's necessary, let's try it. I just feel like at any moment I can go crazy. So great, I'll buy the plane tickets today, and we will stay at a friend of mine's house instead of a hotel. It seems good to you. She is older, but she has such a charming and cozy house. You will like everything. It will be like a family. Interesting, Star. She tried to smile. I think it will even be better than staying in a noisy hotel. I'm not sure if I want to have active contact with people. A gentle wind enveloped Star with the smells of the sea and blooming greenery. I never would have imagined that it would feel so good here. After arriving, the couple headed to directly at the can. A wonderful blue bay surrounded by little houses wrapped in greenery immediately conquered the heart of the woman. There were practically no people on the promenade. She walked down the marble slabs towards the sea and immersed her bare feet in the fresh water. You will catch a cold, said Alberto. He had already taken the things to the house where they would spend the next week. I suggest you go to a restaurant nearby. They cook amazingly. With pleasure, Star responded. She put on sandals and took her arm. I like my husband a lot. Here Alberto can go crazy just with the smells. Thanks to you. You haven't seen anything yet, he told her. Then we'll go to the underground shelter. You see that mountain on the other side? It's right inside. They used to have submarines there, and then I suggest you take a walk around. The local vineyards, although it is not yet season, there is a unique atmosphere there. Anywhere Star snuggled against her husband's chest. We visited the restaurant that Alberto was referring to. The fish was excellent on the summer terrace. It was empty so that nothing disturbed the peace of the spouses who were silently enjoying the beautiful weather, the excellent food, and the mutual company. After lunch, they headed to the house. The elderly owner of the house turned out to be a very friendly and pleasant woman. She immediately took them to her room. He helped them unpack and showed them his wonderful garden. "I would love to live here," said Star suddenly. "I wish I could leave everything, forget about problems, just enjoy life. Why can't it be that simple? Why people? It always complicates everything." "I don't know." Alberto shrugged. "Maybe they find it boring, or they are in an eternal search for happiness without realizing that it is just on the surface." He just extends his hand. "You think we can be happy again? It seems to me that I will never be able to resign myself. Until Julia is no longer around, dear, it is not necessary you must fight. Until the end I am here, so I will always help and support, but don't give up. There is always a chance, and only when you give up everything falls apart, but I can't even imagine how and where search. Even when she grows up, Damaso will raise her as his daughter. She will easily forget me. Amaya will probably become her mother. A year has already passed. She has probably already forgotten that she had another family. Children adapt very quickly to new conditions. The brain simply blocks the memories, and that's it. Don't think about the bad." Alberto hugged his wife tightly. "And if today we go to Aranaga, we walk along the boardwalk. The city is very beautiful. You will like it, and at night it is simply impressive with lights. Festivities everywhere cannot be described in words." Why Estrella did not smile. Towards the afternoon, the couple arrived in Aranaga. It turned out to be very close. Alberto took Estrella for a walk through the places significant to him. They walked along the trees that framed the brightly lit avenues. Star got a little tired and sat down on a bench. "Here it's great," he sighed, deeply inhaling the thick and fragrant air. "I'm glad you liked it. I love how night falls in the south in just a few minutes. You'll see it by yourself. It's just time." Almost the Star held her breath and really saw how the city was plunged into darkness. The sky was so black, especially over the sea, that it was impressive. The areas illuminated by streetlights seemed like vulnerable islands, while the darkness reigned around for everywhere. Some insects were buzzing. Some insects were flying and jumping. Relaxed, Star sat on the bench, immersed in her husband's arms. She watched the lights that passed quickly by the cars. She looked in the profiles of the passers-by, illuminated by bright shop windows. Suddenly his body tensed. Alberto felt it clearly. "What's wrong, my love?" asked Alberto. As soon as she whispered there, "Look, there is Amaya." Even Alberto jumped off the bench in the direction indicated by the Star. He really saw his ex-wife. She was walking slowly, looking at the mannequins in the shop windows. "My God," he exclaimed. "So, stay here, wait," said his wife. "Let's follow them, and Julia probably are too. We can't scare her." "You're right," Alberto reflected. "So let's cross to the other side and see where the couple is going." The couple crossed the street. Amaya was one of them. She stopped occasionally at those moments to Star, and Alberto had to pretend that they were also examining the contents of the display cases in some way. To Estrella, a wild energy arose in her. Her husband felt it directly, seeing a wild shine in her eyes. They had already traveled almost the entire street when Amaya suddenly got into a taxi. "Damn," Alberto said. "I hope you didn't notice us, Star. I wrote down the license plate. I will call the detective immediately. He will come alone. Don't worry." "Okay, okay," answered confidently his wife. "Now they are not going to escape from us." The detective arrived the next day. He immediately verified all the data. He had no problems tracking down where he went. The car in which Maya was placed asked the spouses not to take action immediately. It was necessary to verify everything thoroughly. The surveillance lasted 2 days. "Well," the detective reported with a satisfied expression, placing a heavy folder in front of Estrella and Alberto. "We have them. Take a look at these photos. The girl is with them. They live in the outskirts, a few minutes by car from here." Estrella looked through the photos with trembling hands in which her daughter was captured in 1 year. Julia had grown up a lot, but her mother recognized her immediately. The girl had her hair cut short instead of long strands. She had a nice bob cut. "They have been living here practically since the kidnapping," the detective continued. "They are registered as the Diaz-Roque family. Paulina and daughter Flora, the girl doesn't go to daycare. The neighbors said that the couples rarely leave the house because the girl is constantly sick. My God, she was scared. Star, calm down. This is just a facade. The girl is healthy. The kidnappers simply don't want to run unnecessary risks. Well, let's continue. They both work from home. I couldn't understand specifically that the man is a designer or something like that. The woman seems to be a housewife. The house is her property. We can call the police. Right now, Alberto asked. Yes, I think we can put pressure on them easily. They are always at home. Alberto called the detective who was handling his case, immediately telling him everything that the detective had discovered. The police officer promised to immediately contact his colleagues and wait for him till they told Estrella she could barely wait to see her daughter, but Alberto explained that any precipitation could cause great damage. About an hour later, they received a call from the department. From the local police, a female detective informed them that the operational team was ready to head to the address provided and suggested that the spouses join them. Star accepted without hesitation. Although Alberto suspected that it could be dangerous, Star was extremely excited. There is our daughter, really. You think that this despicable person will defend himself? They don't even suspect anything. They will stop them, and only then will we really leave. You think that like an obsessed person I will run ahead of the police? To be honest, Alberto hesitated. There was such a thought. Estrella looked at him fulminantly, but something in her husband's expression made her laugh. Estrella laughed a lot. Occasionally, she began to cry, seeing that his wife was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Alberto hugged her and tried to calm her down. Soon the intervention team arrived. The spouses got into their vehicle, and half an hour later they were a few meters from the house where the kidnappers were hiding. The star felt like the heroine of a thriller movie. Her nerves were on edge. Every minute seemed endless. The only thing that calmed her was Alberto's hand tightly squeezing hers. The police surrounded the house. The street seemed deserted in some houses. The lights were on. Occasionally, dogs could be heard barking. The intervention team entered. On the grounds of the House of the Days, they surrounded the building. A young police officer rang the doorbell. In 1 minute, Damaso appeared at the door. Literally in a few seconds, they immobilized him and put handcuffs on him. A couple of minutes later, 2 more police officers appeared at the door carrying Amaya. The woman resisted, desperately trying to free herself, but all her attempts were in. The kidnappers were taken to the patrol car. The young police officer approached Estrella and Alberto. Mr. and Mrs. Ramos accompanied me to the house. The girl is there. She is sleeping. Everything is fine with her. We will take her and go immediately to the police station. Star ran out of the car and ran towards the house. Alberto didn't even have time to holding her hand as she passed by the police car. Estrella felt a look on her. She didn't even turn around. Knowing that her ex-husband was watching her, she ran into the house where the police were already waiting for her. One of the men guided her up. Julia was sleeping peacefully in her room. Star literally threw herself on her and started hugging her mom. The sleepy girl murmured, "It's you." "Yes, honey, of course, yes." Star hugged her daughter, tightly covering her with a kiss. "Mom," finally shouted the girl. "Waking up, I've been waiting for you so much. Uncle and Aunt said you were sick and couldn't come see me anymore. They were joking." "Darling mommy, don't cry." Julia's little hands dried the tears on the Star's face. "No, I'll cry. My joy is happiness. I missed you so much, and me too." "And where is Dad?" Alberto entered the room. He was also crying. He stayed for a moment on the threshold, watching how his beloved wife hugged his daughter, and then he couldn't resist and ran to hug them both. The investigation didn't last. Damaso confessed everything a lot. He told how he came up with the plan when he found out that he was going to be a father. He immediately told everything to Amaya. Already then he knew that his wife would never be able to have children, but he did not suspect that this issue would be so painful for her. Amaya, gradually she began to convince him to claim his rights over the child. Despite all attempts to resolve the matter peacefully, the Star turned out to be inflexible, and when the court forbade him to see his daughter, something inside him broke. Amaya proposed a plan, but doing all this was not so easy. Damaso began to draw up an action plan in detail, and to the smallest detail he had ordered documents in advance. He turned to his ex-wife's secretary to be aware of the Star's affairs, but time passed and the right opportunity did not present itself. He even bought a house where he planned to start a new life without raising suspicions. You couldn't talk. Going abroad was much easier within your own country. And one day Telma called and said that Star would be late. At work, she had supposedly just called her husband and asked him to pick up her daughter from kindergarten. It was simply necessary to take advantage of that opportunity, ladies, so immediately ran to the kindergarten. After waiting a couple of hours, she arrived there and introduced herself as Julia's father was the truth. So he wasn't even particularly nervous. To his surprise, the educator took the girl to him without asking unnecessary questions. Julia turned out to be obedient. She just whispered to him that her mother was. Damaso scolded the star for not having explained that she should not go with strangers, but precisely that mother's carelessness worked in his favor. He immediately took Julia home where Amaya was waiting for him. They quickly loaded some things into the car and headed to the planned location. Amaya gave the girl a sleeping pill so that she would not bother them on the way. When they arrived in Aranaga, Julia cried constantly and asked to be with her mother. The biological father had to invent a story according to which he and Amaya were Julia's uncles and the mother was very sick, so she could not come, and gave them the girl despite her young age. The girl suspected something bad all the time. She tried to escape from home, by what the husbands kept her under lock and key. About after half a year, Julia calmed down, but the happy and active girl became introverted, quiet and sad. Neither toys nor kind words, nor the care of her new parents could replace going to mom and dad. Amaya often downloaded his frustration in her constantly arguing with Damaso, and then against her prohibition, she once left the house to take a walk around the city at dusk. By some strange coincidence, at that moment she saw the star. Amaya was declared mentally unstable. In acute psychosis, his actions were dictated by a confused mind. The next few years would be spent in the walls of a hospital. Damaso admitted his guilt completely and received a royal prison sentence. Star even felt pity for that couple that circumstances turned into true monsters, partly blamed themselves. After all, if at that moment she had allowed her ex-husband to see her daughter even from time to time, everything would have been different. Alberto asked her husband, "One day you believe in destiny?" "Of course, yes," he said, balancing Julia on his knees. "Otherwise we wouldn't be here now so happy and carefree." "Mom, and what is destiny?" he asked happily. The girl, "It's hard to explain, honey." She stroked her head. "Star is simply how things should be." "Like us?" asked Julia. "Yes, dear, like us." "And what is happiness?" Did not stop Julia. "Happiness," was surprised. "Star, that is more complicated." "None of that," contradicted Alberto. "Happiness is very simple. It is always close. You just have to extend the hand. My happiness is you."